Hi, I'm Richard Layte. I'm from Trinity College in Dublin. I'm a sociologist, but I'm a sociologist who's very interested in health inequalities, in the patterns of mortality and morbidity that characterize different social groups. One of the key issues that I'm interested in is the extent to which we can explain large differences in health and well-being in older age groups. This is something we've been pursuing in Dublin, in which we have comparative work with teams in other countries too. And one of the things we've realized from previous research is that earlier periods in people's lives often contribute to well-being and health in older age. We realize that what people have experienced before is hugely important for explaining their later life health outcomes. Now, this is not new in some respects. We've always known that earlier life experiences can shape your later life outcomes. But here there's a growing understanding that the growth of health, or physical, psychological and social health capital, and the extent of the growth of that can be very important for your subsequent level of decline in health in older age groups as you move from middle age into old age. Those initial periods of growth and development can be very important for the level of health development. Now, this is as yet still largely unproven, and its LifePath's major task is to try to explain these processes using data from all over Europe from different cohort studies. Now, one of our cohort studies from Ireland is called Growing Up in Ireland, and we have a sample of 20,000 Irish children that we followed over time from 2007-8, and we're carrying on following them now. And what most people will know is that in 2007-8, Ireland experienced a dramatic downturn in its economy. So the Irish economy fell in terms of overall levels of income in the economy, and individual incomes. Individual families were really strongly affected by this. Now, this was a tragedy for Irish families, and it was a really important change for Irish society. But it gives researchers an opportunity to examine the way in which economic downturn and recession influences the development of children, and the way that that itself can structure their long-term health and well-being. So part of LifePath that is a piece of research where we'll be using Portuguese, US and Irish cohorts to look at how recession and downturn impacted on individual Irish families and the different pathways through which downturn then influenced the health and well-being of children. We want to look at the extent to which the experience of financial strain at the family level shaped the psychological well-being of parents, the financial stress that they experienced and how that translated into depression and psychological distress. And then the way that that then shaped not only the children's psychological development and therefore their longer term outcomes, but also the very physiology, the biology of those children. How was that actually affected? And we have good knowledge from previous studies that there may be pathways, epigenetic pathways, physiological pathways that link the experience of recession to children's health in such a way that it might contribute to those differentials in health at older age. That is their likelihood of experiencing chronic disease when they are 65 plus. That's something we hope to do, and I'm looking forward to trying it. We have information on both mothers and fathers, so what we did was we looked at the way that the child's psychological well-being was shaped by its interactions with mothers and fathers. What we found was that mothers were more strongly affected by the downturn than the fathers were. So they were more likely to experience the risk of depression. They were more likely to experience depression, and the effect that depression had on their subsequent marital quality, their relationship with their partner. Now, I think that women were experiencing the financial strain in the households at the same level as the men were, but they had a stronger reaction to it. And this is something we know from the broader literature, that women are more susceptible to depression and anxiety than men are in any given environment. And that's because of the physiology of women in many ways, and the way that contributes to differential risk between men and women. So there are two processes here. One, the women were more likely to develop those symptoms of depression and anxiety. But secondly, they were the main carers for the children, and therefore they had the largest effects on their child. The fathers, if they were there, were not the main carers, and that meant that the impact of the economic downturn and their own psychological distress, even if they were very distressed, because the children were not exposed to them as much, there was less of a damaging effect on them. We are still to do quite a lot of research on this. This is something, these are initial findings, and we've still got much more work to do. But as you say, there are differences in effects between mothers and fathers, and we can explain those in a couple of different ways.